¿Qué tal, amigos? Long time no see. Today I want to talk about Selena's major inspiration of Janet Jackson herself. Now, for those who don't know, Janet Jackson just recently came out with a 4-hour documentary documenting her life from when she was a little girl up until an adult and became a major success. And the documentary displays a very raw Janet Jackson, the part of Janet Jackson that we rarely ever see. And it was most definitely an eye-opener of her life and what she went through, her struggling with her image, her struggling with her marriages, even struggling with her brother Michael, hearing about their interaction, their relationship after the Thriller era. It was very heartbreaking. It was like a bittersweet moment. They had moments where Michael would just neglect Janet, and then there were moments where, it was like back in the old times where they were very close and interactive. Most of the documentary just touched on Janet Jackson finding herself, finding the things that she liked when it comes to her music and her image, and she most definitely struggled with that, and finding people that understood her image and that would work with her and not against her or use her. It was a whole lot, sweetie. And while watching this documentary, one thing that I noticed a lot of things that were similar to my girl Selena, honey. I noticed a lot of things that made me, realize why Selena was so inspired by Janet Jackson, and I want to talk about that in this video. First things first, let's talk about their upbringing. They didn't have, a lot of money coming in. You look back at the Jacksons and how they lived. There were basically 11 people living in a very small house. You can only imagine the lack of privacy. But then again, it's majorly understandable how they were so close back in their younger years before they became a success and started going in their own path. Another thing is that Joe Jackson, which is the Jackson's father, was the manager of Janet Jackson. When she was younger and she was first starting off her career, he managed her sound, he managed her image, he managed, who could sign over to her. And while Janet Jackson was going over that part of her life, it reminds me a lot of Selena and what she had to go through with her father. He controlled the kind of music that she sung, her image as well, the people she interacted with, all that. It was, if not almost then, exactly the same as what Janet Jackson had to go through with her father. Later on, Janet Jackson, she slowly started to realize what was the real problem. And the major problem when it came to her and who she really wanted to be was her father. She had to make the major decision by dropping her father as her manager and take full control. If anybody who has read Chris's book, he mentions that Selena was soon going to drop her father, Abraham, as her manager as well. Another situation that Janet Jackson and Selena went through was eloping. In 1984, at only the age of 18, Janet Jackson would go on to marry James DeBarge. And for those who don't know James DeBarge, he was very well known for singing Rhythm of the Night. Rhythm of the Night. Yeah, that song. And we also know the story about Miss Selena Quintanilla, who got married in 1992 at the age of 20 years old. And the reason why Janet Jackson went off to elope is because one thing Rebe Jackson was mentioning in the documentary was that Janet Jackson is very much to herself. She never tells her family anything. Janet Jackson basically have to tell them later on, or they have to find out for themselves, because Janet Jackson she keeps everything to herself. She isn't very vocal about her situation and the things that she's going through or the things that she's doing. She lets other people find out, or she tell them for themselves. Now, we all know Selena Quintanilla's situation. Abraham wasn't very accepting of Selena dating Chris Perez, the rock star, as he referred to, and Selena thought it was a great idea to go and elope and get married without anybody knowing, to really show how much she loves Chris and the sacrifices she will make for her boo. Okay. Now, that was one thing that was very interesting to me, because I never knew Janet Jackson eloped, basically went off and got married without anyone knowing. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, that is very similar to Selena's situation.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, fast forwarding to Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation era, we see a very nervous Janet Jackson. She wasn't very nervous, but her and the producers of Rhythm Nation were a little bit on teeter-tottering on Rhythm Nation, because around that time, it wasn't often that you hear people listening to music that will talk about changing the world and making it a better place. Rhythm Nation, she wrote Rhythm Nation because the number of crimes rising around that time, and she wanted to talk about it in her song. She wanted equality, she wanted the fight to stop, and being that wasn't a popular thing to talk about in songs, it was a huge risk. And she also mentioned before going on her Rhythm Nation tour that she had a dream of 3 people only showing up during her performance, and it scared her. And I thought that was very interesting, because Selena, she had this fear of people not showing up during her performance. Now, I don't know if that's something that's common with artists, because you're always competing with the big dogs. You always got to stay on top. But I just thought that was an interesting thing. And this was Janet Jackson's first huge world tour, Rhythm Nation. And she was shocked to find out the very next day, the very day of her first performance, that there were a line of cars outside. She was like, who is that for? Like, why are there so many cars outside? She was like, who are they here for? And when she found out that they were here for her, she was shocked. And that's very similar to Selena's situation as well. Selena was always found shocked when she would always have a crowd of people gravitate towards her. And it was mentioned, it was even shown in the series of after the Grammys was all said and done, she was on her way back home, and she had a group of people calling her name, Selena, and she was in shock. She was like, oh my gosh, there's people who know me here. And I thought that was so funny, because girl, you won a Grammy. Like, of course they know you. And it's like, to us, it's like, this is Selena, this is Janet Jackson, what do you guys mean? But to them, they really didn't feel like they were the type of people to draw a very large crowd and have so many people know who they are. They didn't realize how successful they were at the time. And I thought that was very interesting in Janet Jackson's documentary. I was like, oh, wow. Of course, we have to touch on the clothing and the dance moves. Okay, after Rhythm Nation was a worldwide sensation, a lot of people started to take inspiration of Janet Jackson's dance moves, her clothing, and all of that. And Selena, of course, was one of those people. If you look back at her performances around the late 80s, you'll notice she used a lot of Janet Jackson's dance moves. She would sing her songs from time to time as well, and also honoring her brother, Michael Jackson, of course, from time to time as well. We all know how much Selena loves her Janet Jackson. She is always referring to her through her dance moves and her clothing. Even though Selena didn't use Janet Jackson's dance moves as much as she did as she got older, because we all know as she got older, she started doing more music that'll favor the Hispanic community. She started doing more cumbia, Tejano music, things such as that. So she started doing more cumbia dance moves. However, if you look closely, you'll see from time to time she would still use Janet Jackson's dance moves. She loves her some Janet Jackson. Okay. Selena, she also, of course, took major inspiration when it comes to Janet Jackson's wardrobe, such as the leather jacket that Selena wore during her live performance in 1994 on In Vivo, when she was performing songs such as La Carcacha, Baila Esta Cumbia, Como la Flor, That leather jacket was the exact same jacket Janet Jackson wore when she was performing What Have You Done For Me Lately and Nasty in her 1987 live performance for the Grammy Award. And I thought that was very interesting because it was like, a lot of Selena collectors, they own this jacket and they probably don't even know that by owning this jacket, you not only own the same jacket Selena wore, but what Janet Jackson wore as well. It's very cool. It's very interesting. And here are some more clothes and accessories that Selena wore that was very much inspired by Janet Jackson, and the things that she wore as well, from the baseball caps to the beaded wooden jackets and things such as that. She is very inspired by Janet Jackson. Even their hairstyles was very similar, honey. Like, it was a lot of similarities that Janet Jackson and Selena Quintanilla had, because Selena was so inspired by Janet. And one thing that I want to talk about, that I want to mention, is, it really kind of frustrated me, and this frustrated a few other Selena fans as well. Selena, Janet Jackson was such a huge inspiration to Selena but for some reason, she rarely gets mentioned. And it's not even like, oh, it's just like some little inspiration. No. Like, Selena, she is a major fan of Janet Jackson. Like, you watch her and you watch Janet, it's like almost one and the same. It's like their moves are so similar. Their look is so similar. Even the sound of their music is so similar. And, it frustrates some people in the Selena community, even sometimes in the Black community, that Janet Jackson does not get the credit that she deserves. And this is just in general. For some reason, Janet Jackson, I feel like the reason why Janet Jackson doesn't get the credit that she deserves is because she is the sister of Michael Jackson, and being how big Michael Jackson is, it's like it's always a competition when it becomes between her and Michael. So she's always just left in the back when she should be in the front, right beside him. You know what I mean? And there is a thing, like, a lot of people call Janet Jackson an underrated legend. She's not underrated, but when it comes to the legend category, she is underrated. Her name is not brought up as much as it should be brought up. So even though it's very flattering seeing, Selena, being that she is part of the Mexican American community, and she's taken such an inspiration off of Janet Jackson, it's like, where was she in the Selena series? Why was she never mentioned? Jodie Watley was mentioned, but Janet Jackson was just nowhere to be found. Hopefully this documentary allows people to talk about her a bit more, hopefully a whole lot more, because Janet Jackson most definitely deserves her flowers. There are a lot of people who are inspired by her, and I feel like her success most definitely should be talked about more. I mean, she wasn't inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame until 2019.
¿A quién admiras en el giro de la música?
Bueno, yo admiro mucho en el mercado mexicano.
¿Quién te ha influenciado, digamos, en tu carrera artística? ¿A quién admiras?
Bueno, donde empecé cantando era artistas más de los 50s. Canciones muy viejos. Pues también, no sé si conoces a Taste of Honey, Michael Jackson, wow. ¿Quién más? AC/DC, muchos artistas que en ese tiempo lo estaba pegando muy fuerte, y Kiss y todo eso. Y pues ahora, por lo pronto, yo creo que es sí, todavía Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mariah, Whitney, artistas como Gloria Estefan. Tenemos que darle gracias a ella porque ella abrió las puertas para nosotros, nuestros hispanos.
Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and I just want you guys to notice their similarities and how they talk and their hairstyles and stuff like that, and just pay attention to how much Selena is just so inspired by Janet. Okay, that's all for today, y'all. Hope you guys enjoyed my video. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.